Hi everyone, Sarah from Sarah Homfray Embroidery. Welcome to another Chit Chat Tuesday. And today I thought we would talk about unusual places to find embroidery. So I've had a few trips out this year, not related to embroidery, and I found some embroidery. And I was looking through my photographs yesterday. I thought, this is really interesting. Look at all these things I've found when I wasn't looking for them. So I thought we'd just have a little look at that, and I'd talk about where I went and what I found, and I would show you that. But just before we get into that, I want to do a little update on our postage. So where we are sending to from our online shop, because a few of you will be aware that I made one of these recently about the new tariffs to the US. So I've got an update on that for you. But firstly, I want to say the good news, we are now shipping again to Northern Ireland. Somebody has put a little button on the processing system that we use that we tick now, and we say we're not sending it to a business, it's not going to go to the EU, and they've gone, all right, that's okay then, off you go. So hopefully all of that is now as normal. We tick that little box and we can send to Northern Ireland. So that is brilliant news that we can get back to normal on that one. And it's also good news for our lovely customers in the US as well. We are now shipping to you again. There are some changes, so I'm just going to run through what they are so that you are fully aware of how that now works. So it is going to cost you a little bit more money, I'm afraid. So we have now put on a tariff to everything going to the US. So it's 10% tariff. Those prices will be displayed as an extra price when you put your items in the basket. So order as normal, add to the basket, then work out the tariff. And please note that tariff is on not only the goods, but also on the postage to the US as well. So if you're wondering why it is what it is, those are two factors to take into consideration. So what you're buying and the postage as well. But it's all carefully, clearly displayed for you in your checkout process as to what that amount is before you commit to buy. So if you get to that point and you think you don't want to pay it, you can still change your mind. That's absolutely fine. So everything is clear for you to see what it is you're actually paying. There is also an extra 50 pence on all the postage options as well. Royal Mail are charging this fee per parcel to do the admin for taking the tariff money and forwarding that on to the US. So they're charging us for that. So we have to pass that on. I'm afraid we can't do anything about those extra prices, but hopefully you will find that's not as bad as it sounds, and you'll be able to see before you buy anyway. So we are now shipping again to the US. So welcome back to our US customers. Okay, so let's get back to these embroideries, these weird and wonderful places that I found some embroidery. So where should we start? So let's start with a weekend that I went up to Northumberland for recently. I went up there to do a day's class with somebody, and I had a day's extra spare, and I thought, oh, what shall I go and do with this day? And I stayed in a glamping pod. It was a very nice glamping pod. It was very posh. Could have moved in, actually. It was that nice. And it was right on a National Trust estate called Gibbside. Now, Gibbside is actually a ruined house. There isn't a house you can go in anymore. I think it was ruined because they had lots of properties and they were going to get charged some death taxes on it. So they thought, oh, well, if we ruin it, we won't have to pay the taxes. I think that's how it ended up ruined. But the estate is really interesting, and I could walk to it from where I was. So I went across the field and I'm immediately in the park. It's an absolutely amazing place to be able to walk around. So I knew there wasn't a house to go into, but I read that the walks were lovely, and indeed they were. I had a very nice time walking around there. But then I got to the church. Now the church is still whole. It wasn't actually ever finished, but it is a whole building and it was used. And I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, to find these beautiful curtains on the door. I'm going to put them up here so you can see them. And the reason for these curtains being up was because the church is open for you to go in and have a look around, but the little birdies were getting into the church. Coming in and making a bit of a mess on everything in the church. So somebody made some beautiful curtains to hang in the door, and there was a little sign that said, please make sure the curtains are shut when you come in and out. But look at them, they're absolutely gorgeous. I'm just going to pull them up on my screen so I can talk about them for you. So little kind of wildlife scene on them, and bearing in mind they're out in the open, they're kind of covered. They weren't directly in the weather, but they were outside in the open, and they've got these beautiful nature scenes on them. And they've got all these plants, and there's a little bit of printing on there, so you can see the sort of printed leaves in the background, and then there's some mushrooms stitched on there. There's some plants at the bottom. There's some flowers. They look like foxgloves. Really, really creative, and something I'm quite interested in at the moment, this sort of style. So I was more interested in the curtains than the church. Church wasn't that interesting inside. Got some little teasels as well, look. So a mix of printing and a mix of embroidery and a mix of applique on there. And I don't know who made the curtains. It didn't say. It was just they're there to stop the birds coming in, which is a bit of a shame because I would have liked to have known that. But they are really gorgeous patterns, and I was trying to take a picture of it and people were coming in and out. It was like trying to take the curtains. I've just got these few there, so lots of applique, oak leaves and all these gorgeous little hand-stitched birds, and I thought that was really beautiful and just really unexpected. I didn't expect to find anything there, and there was these lovely little curtains, and not something I've ever seen anywhere else is a set of curtains to keep the birds out. So those were really, really lovely, and I was quite inspired by those. I was quite inspired by the mix of printing and stitching as well. And if you wanted to do something big, you don't have to stitch it all. You can print on it and then you can embellish it with stitch. So I thought those were really lovely items to find. Okay, so another place that I have been to, Jonathan and I went and we had an afternoon out. We do this every year and we really enjoy it. So for those of you who don't know, we have a motorbike. We have a touring motorbike, and we like to go off on it when we can. And do a little bit of touring on that. And one of the things we go to is a bike night. So it's at Lincoln Aviation Heritage Centre. And at this place they have got a Lancaster bomber that they're doing up, and they want it to fly again. And the minute it taxis up and down the runway, it doesn't take off yet. But they are working towards that. And they have lots of events on here. And we've been to quite a few before. Some on the bike, some not, but they do a bike night a couple of nights in the summer every year, and anybody can go along who's got a bike, any kind of bike, and you pay £5, and there's not really anything going on particularly other than they taxi this amazing Lancaster bomber up and down the runway, which is quite amazing. But there's just so many bikes, and we reckon tally about 4,000 to 5,000 bikes. Just so many bikes, but it's just a wonderful atmosphere and everybody gets chatting. And they open their museum as well, which they have where they keep the hangar where they keep the Lancaster bomber. And I found this in the museum. So this is obviously a military badge for the RAF, and you can see the beautiful gold work on here. Put it up here. And a little bit of silk shading in the middle as well. And this is tiny, you know, the whole badge is only kind of palm of my hand, so tiny gold work. So I always love seeing these things and knowing that somebody's hand stitched this amazing badge. But there's a really interesting story behind this as well, and I think that's what's interesting when I find these pieces of embroidery. There's a story behind them all. It's not just a random piece of embroidery lying around. I've come across them and these amazing stories with them. So this one belonged to this chap here, and it's a really sad story, this one. I'm not sure you can see where this one is going. So this exhibition was officially opened on 19th of October 1991 by Leslie Watt in memory of his brother Norman, killed while flying on the 1st of July 1943, and the plane, a call sign for the plane BL655. And so this was his badge that this young man wore, and he died, and his brother opened this exhibition for him. This memorial for him in this museum at Lincoln Aviation. So they've got this lovely picture of him there, and they've got his badge beautifully made, and his flying wings as well. And then also, which is really sad, is they've got the aeroplane, the Spitfire that he actually died in, which is, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. But the story is interesting to see, this whole story, and to see this story of this young man and what he sacrificed, and to see this embroidery associated with it. So a really moving story. Sometimes they aren't a good ending, not always a nice story necessarily, but you know, everybody was walking through, they think of the thousands of people then, saw this man and could remember him. And I think as long as we keep them in our minds, we won't forget them, you know, and I think that's quite important. There's lots of memorial things around this site. There's lots of trees been planted for people who died in their aircraft or on the ground or serving their country. So it's a very moving place as well, but also very lively, with everybody there and still visiting it and still able to see these people and to read their stories. So I do think that's quite important. So I just thought I'd share that little story with you and we could remember him together. So we've got another aircraft museum. So Jonathan likes his aircraft museums. If you're wondering why I'm spending my time going to aircraft museums, I like them too. I'm interested in them too. My father was an aircraft engineer who used to design aircraft, so we've always had that in our family. So I do enjoy visiting them as well, and I'm always rooting around to see what I can find that is sort of my interest really while he's looking at the planes. And I found this. So this was from South Yorkshire Aviation Museum. So tiny little museum in Doncaster actually, and we hadn't heard of it, and I was just rooting around on Google Maps. I thought, oh, where can we go, and is there something I haven't seen? And I came up with this place, and we jumped on the motorbike again, and we went up on the motorbike because it was a nice sunny day, and went to have a look around. And I just found these pieces of embroidery as well. So celebrate the Royal Flying Corps, and they've got these beautiful handkerchiefs. So these I think were made in France. I'm just going to look at the information sheet in a second. But you can see how beautifully they've been made. Look at that gorgeous scalloped edge with the buttonhole stitch around it, all hand done, and then this silk Royal Flying Corps words, and then this wreath and the wings and the crown on top of it and the motif on top of it. It's just really, really beautiful little handkerchiefs, just folded up and just in a case really. And of course the postcards. So you might be familiar with the postcards. I've got a couple of these in my collection. They have been in a few videos before as well. So they were made in France, and they would send them home to their loved ones. But they're stitched on the most amazing fine gauze, really, really fine. And there's a card inside, and then there's a flap on. You can see this flap would lift up, and there's a little card goes inside the envelope. So the envelope's like a really fine fabric, very, very fine, with this beautiful silk embroidery on it, with the flags and with little mottos, and often with flowers on, and then they put the little note, and they would send those home as well. So there was one of those in there. I always love to see those. And then another silk handkerchief here. What does that one say? Christmas greetings on it. And a little girl with a Union Jack on her hat, and her little roses, again in silk on this beautiful gauze fabric with this lovely lace edging on it. And then it just says, let me read this. What does it say? Souvenir handkerchiefs from France. A Christmas card from Hugh Carson to his daughter Joyce. Cards made especially for the Royal Flying Corps. So again, that little bit of story, that bit of provenance behind it. And if you saw my video recently on my collection, which I'm putting together and keeping in my acid-free box, and I'm trying to find out as much as I can to keep a record of it, so that these pieces are not just silk handkerchiefs in a cabinet. They've got this story. We know who sent it and who they sent it to, and I really love that provenance behind it, to know the story behind these beautiful pieces of embroidery. Now, I did show this next piece on a social media post recently, because I've been on this little trip this weekend away with my mum and my two sisters. We all met up and we had a lovely dinner together. It was really nice. And on the next day, me and my mum and my sister Caroline, we went to National Trust property. So we went to Baddesley Clinton, which is a very old manor house, 1300s, I think, in Warwickshire in England. And there's not a very big house, so it's not like a huge, great big grand house where you'd expect to find some embroideries, and it's very old. So we went to see this house and have a little look round. So you can often find amazing embroideries in National Trust properties. That isn't a surprise to anybody, I don't think. But I was a bit surprised to find these here, because there wasn't, like I say, it wasn't a very big house, and pretty dark in there as well. But I was really excited to come across this, because I've been doing this kind of embroidery recently. So this is chenille embroidery. So this is the fluffy thread with a pile on it that you can stitch with, or you can stitch over with it. And then I found this gorgeous fire screen with this peacock and these flowers on it. And it's very rare to find chenille embroidery. It's quite an unusual technique to find. So to come around this house and just see this prompt in front of a fireplace was a bit like, oh my god, they didn't really have that in front of a fire, did they? But it was beautiful. I loved it, and it was really amazing to see this chenille embroidery and see how vibrant the colours were as well, stitched on a really weird background, like a gauzy sort of background, a little bit like a net. I've never seen anything stitched on something like that before, so I don't quite know what the idea of that material is. If you do know, you can jump in the comments below and you can let me know what you think that material is. But really beautiful to see this amazing piece of chenille in situ, and as it would have been used in the environment that it was in. And also in the same house, in a different room, was another fire screen of some needlepoint. Now, I've actually shared these pictures with our YouTube channel members and our patrons. They've seen these before. So a really exquisite piece of needlepoint, piece of canvas work, again as a fire screen in front of a fire. Lots and lots of detail. This incredible coat of arms in petty point and normal canvas stitches as well. And you can just see, I think the petty point's done in the silk and it shines against the other material. So again, another nice thing to find in this house, another exquisite piece of embroidery. Okay, so we're going back in the year a little bit now, and we went to Norway. So we've been teaching on board with Fred Olsen. We've been craft instructors on board with Fred Olsen on a couple of cruises now, and we went to Norway. We went in search of the Northern Lights, which we did see, and they were stunning, absolutely incredible. But one of the things I really wanted to do is go and see a stave church. Now, we've been to Norway a few times and we've not managed to see one. So really, really old traditional church made out of wood. And you can see one here. I'll put one up now. And this is the stave church we went to see, a place called Kvørnes. And it was very cold. It was freezing up there, biting wind, absolutely freezing. And we went in this church and I found some embroidery. So on the altar piece here, you can see this altar cloth on the top here with this amazing white work around it. And we were all wrapped up and we were really, really chilly. And they played some music for us, actually, some traditional folk music from the area, which was really, really lovely to hear that. And we were sitting listening to this and I thought, oh, I want to go and see the lace. So just some white work around it. But look at the designs on it. Absolutely exquisite. I'm not too sure what kind of white work it is offhand. I can have a look and see if I can find out what that is. I'm not too sure, but just beautiful samples of it around the bottom of this cloth. And in this freezing cold church, really probably not the best place to keep some embroidery, but you know, I like seeing it in situ, maybe not necessarily kept away and so nobody can see. It's actually in situ and it was being used. So really beautiful piece of white work, and it went really nicely with the walls as well. The whole inside of this church was painted all over the walls with these acanthus leaves and these stunning images just on every wall that there was. So really amazing church. It was really fascinating to see it and to see all these different designs together and from all these different eras as well, and to listen to the fabulous music that they sung in this environment. And really nice to get back on the coach, warm up. I can't tell you how cold it was, but you can't go and see the Northern Lights unless you go somewhere cold. So just part and parcel of it, but some really beautiful white work. Now, it isn't always the actual embroidery you see. Sometimes it's a reference to it, and the most common reference that you see is the Bayeux tapestry. Just love how much the Bayeux tapestry comes up in history programmes and in museums as well. So this is the Maritime Museum in Falmouth. So this is on another cruise that we were on with Fred Olsen, and we were teaching on board, and we went around the British Isles and we stopped in Falmouth, absolutely threw it down, really threw it down, and we were like, we need to get out of the wet. And we went in the Maritime Museum. So probably wouldn't have maybe visited this particularly, not particularly interested in boats. But what do you find? A bit of the Bayeux tapestry, not the actual Bayeux tapestry, but a reference to it. So it's absolutely stunning record of its time, and it's been referred to for so many different archaeological studies. So they could tell from this tapestry what people were eating and how they built their boats and how they lived and what tools they used. So this little bit of the Bayeux tapestry pops up on a board, and this is talking about the tools they use, because obviously it's boat building. We're in a Maritime Museum, and how they made the boats, and they could tell from the Bayeux tapestry what tools they would have used to make the boats. And there was actually this group, I think they were in Sweden, I think so, and were a boat building yard, and they looked at this tapestry and they worked out what tools would have been used, and they looked at the marks they made in a boat they actually found, and then compared it with the tools they found in the tapestry and worked out what tool. They said, well, you can't make that mark with this tool, so they didn't use that. And they looked at this, and they're actually using similar tools. You can see them here that you can see on the Bayeux tapestry. So it's kind of like a reverse archaeology, if you like. This is what we've got at the end. How do we work back and work out what they made? And without the tapestry and the images in the tapestry, they may never have known this. So even though it's not the actual tapestry, it was fascinating to see it being referenced again and again. This is an amazing historical document that we are lucky to still have and still be able to study, and how they used it to work out how to build a boat. So I thought that was really interesting. So those are just a few of the things that I have seen this year on my various travels without even looking. So I just thought it was interesting to share that with you, and maybe you have found something that you didn't expect to see. And if you have, let me know about it. Do share your experiences and the things you found in the comments below the video. Drop me a line if you found something. Tell me what you found and where you found it, and maybe we can all keep our eyes open and see if we can find lots more things. We could build a little list of places you can go. Obviously, National Trust properties are bound to have embroidery, and museums as well, of course, will have lots of things as well. So this is a kind of embroidery where you wouldn't necessarily expect to see it. So do let me know if you have found anything and what you found. I'd be really interested to hear your stories. Okay, folks, so that's it for this little Chit Chat Tuesday. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this. Look forward to seeing your comments. Give it a thumbs up if you have liked it, and I will see you again soon.